Well, it's Friday, and I should be painting minis or dungeon tiles, but we don't have any because the PLA printers and the rosin printer have all been taking a break. I guess they went on holiday when we did too. So there, I am reduced to continuing to work on the submarine. And it's not like there's not a huge amount of stuff to do on the submarine. There is. So I'll be able to fill the time in hopefully somewhat entertaining fashion today. I don't know. I don't know if you'll be entertained or not, but you are going to get Submarine Friday, Sub-Fry, whether you like it or not. I was not able to put a second coat on the missile tubes because I need to find a way to hold them individually. I built this nice little stand where all 16 of them stood up. But as I found out, when I set that down, I can't get the paint even on all of them. It's like one shades the other, or I get the angle right and I cover a spot that's lightly coated on one and then it double coats it on the other one. So I'm going to have to hold them somehow individually and spray paint the spots that need more paint and not the ones that don't. Okay, so that, anyway, I need to try to make it look more uniform. But, I could just I'll get one. I'll show you what I'm dealing with here. Maybe I can procrastinate enough, by just showing you what I'm dealing with. I'm going to have to be getting up and down and wandering around today anyway, because I need to get parts from over there, the submarine hull. I'm going to be painting a lot of detail stuff, so I got all sorts of different colors. And I'm going to also be testing, figuring out how to paint the reactor core. See, this submarine has a cutaway reactor core, and that reactor core has to look viciously hot. Okay, it just needs to just be, that's superheated water coming up through the middle here. It's there. It's like a hole in it. Weird. It's actually a small hole. Okay. I'm going to fix that just real quickly. It's not something that's going to show from the front very much, but there's a hole. See it? Maybe right down there. There's a hole that goes all the way through the plastic. This is the back. It's not going to show. And I'm just using a little bit of that putty just to plug it, basically. It's really tiny. It's like a pinprick. I don't really want light showing through. Anyway, part of what I need to do before I can finish the submarine is figure out how to paint the reactor core so it looks like it's a reactor core. So I'm going to use a technique that I'm going to test one that I used on the flying demon things that I just finished on Monday, which is to have a metallic color, like silver gun. I'm going to use chainmail silver and gunmetal, a lighter and a darker color, and then put some speed paint on it, which serves as a wash, and that might succeed in making it look like metallic, because it's uranium, but also make it look like it's glowing hot. These parts are going to be a little bit of a challenge too. The outsides are supposed to be painted red, according to the box top and the painting instructions. Okay, but there's really no place to hold them. So I'm going to have to play around with something, I think. Like the back of this doesn't show and there's a hollow. So I should be able to get something in there, like a stick or something, or a piece of balsa wood, and hold on to it that way. This goes on the top. of this piece, so I need to paint, the inside here and all around the outside, even though the back isn't going to show. But again, I might be able to grab something onto the inside of that. This is a little bit more of a challenge because fits on here like that. Okay, so there's no place to grab it. What I might be able to do is put a pin in this hole and just hold it like that while I paint it. There's all supposed to be painted red, which is a challenge because the red paint usually sucks in terms of coverage. Okay, I've got this bulkhead that needs to be painted. This is one of the machine room bulkheads. There are 5 colors that go on here. There's a gray for the hatches, which show up on either side. Red for the fire extinguishers, dark aluminum for the tips of the fire extinguishers, a thing called bone white, which is for the machinery color. Okay, and then a sort of grayish green for the lockers. And the way I've been painting these is I paint the detail bits and let it go down onto the base a little bit. And then these get painted light green, except underneath here, which gets painted dark gray. This is like the ballast area. And then I've been painting the light green by just doing the detail, painting around the detail bits. I find it sometimes works better to paint up to a surface rather than down to a surface. Yeah, so a lot of different colors go on this, and then when they dry, then I paint it light green. And light green will also be used for a touch-up on the hull of the submarine, where there's some machinery that gets painted the same color as this. So when I paint this, I'll pull the hull out. Anyway, these get painted dark gray top and bottom, so I'll paint the bottoms first. Check to see which way this slides in, because I don't know which is the bottom. This goes into the hull, and I'm guessing that the hull is kind of closing in, so it'll probably go in like that. I'm going to call all that the bottom. This goes in this way. So that's the bottom. Anyway, there'll be a lot of different colors of painting. There'll be painting today on Relaxing Painting with Dyson Dungeons. And I'll be watching paint dry. Maybe I'll try to do them in a specific order so that things actually, dry so I can do the next steps. This gets painted dark gray, but this piece gets painted on both sides. So I'm going to, in order to hold it, I'm just going to put one of these handy dandy alligator clips on the bottom. Okay. And the dark gray stuff will get painted later, I guess. Sometimes you can't just get everything done in one color, which would be efficient. Sometimes you just need to keep going back and forth. And that's going to happen on this. This goes in one of these holes on this piece of wood here like that. There. Yeah, so I got a bunch of red to paint. I have some tests to do to see how to paint the reactor core. And this, which is the heat exchanger, the superheated water comes out of the reactor. At the top there, goes through whatever this is into this, winds its way down, superheating the water that goes up through the top into the machine room, and then comes down at the bottom. So I'm going to try to do something clever with this. Okay, these are external pipes, but these are internal pipes. Once it gets into the cutaway, I'm going to try to paint these different colors to show the water coming in very hot and then cooling off before it leaves the bottom. Right? That's pretty cool, huh? And then this heat exchanger, actually the inside of this heat exchanger technically is filled with water. Yeah. That is becoming heated by these coils. And so the temptation here is to somehow represent that. Yeah, I might end up playing around and, you know, trying to do different things to represent the water that's being heated by these coils. I'm not sure. The box top, just, you know, the color on the box top, and I'll show it to you maybe a little bit, just says to paint all of this red. But I'm going to, anyway, try to play with the detail a little bit. And then seeing, there's a thing here. White dust or debris or something that's in the way. Yeah, so these bits, I mean, it just says paint them red, but okay, it's on the floor. This might be a two-stage painting process, okay? I might have to hold on to the pipe and paint this bit, and then hold on to this bit and paint the pipe. And it's just the way that goes. If I didn't have to paint the inside of it, okay, just, there's no place to grab it. Maybe here. I'm just trying different things to hold it. There's a little, it's just too small for the clip. There's a little tab there that if I could grab onto it, oops, it just helps line this up. Doesn't really do anything. If I could have grabbed onto it, it would have been a way to hold it. Anyway, little challenges. I'm gonna keep these in the box here until I get around to painting them. Yeah, what's the order here? Doing things. The order of doing things is I'm going to start out slowly by painting the bottoms of these dark gray and putting some silver paint down, silvery paint on here, so I can test the different washes to see what might look best in the reactor core. Then I'm going to paint the bone white, and I'm going to get the submarine hull out then too, because there's a couple of machinery pieces that are painted that color on the inside of the hull, and those need to be painted that as a second coat. I'm testing 4 different colors of the speed paint as a wash. So I'm going to make a pretty long stripe of this paint here. And this is the chainmail silver, because I want to do the verticals with the wash. None of them might work, but, you know, don't know that till you try it. This is just another one of those metallics, but it's a little darker. So as I was explaining, this is sub-fry, and it's sub-fry because I do not have any dungeon tiles or minis to paint. The printers have taken a break. This color. Where is the dark aluminium there? Okay, that was a blot. Yeah, this is going to be a mini. I'm using lots of different colors of paint. See, it's much darker. And there's much more paint there than I need. Little goes a long way. So there's a big bunch of gunmetal. Yay. So those get to dry. The music's working. It's kind of shocking. Everything seems to be working today. There are some updates. I didn't install the updates because I actually wanted to get a stream started, but maybe I need to try to remember to do that. Yeah. So there's that. And since I've got this big brush out and I've been using it with a little bit of success, I'm going to paint these guys. These get to be painted on both sides. So I'm just going to start with one side and then flip them over and do the other side. That's a pretty sophisticated technique, isn't it? Paint one side and then the other. These get painted dark gray. So we'll see how this comes along. If it goes all right, I'm going to have a bunch of time left. And I'm going to use that time then to start finding the parts for the last bits of the submarine, which are all the mechanical rooms. Okay, and there's just a lot of stuff there, and it's always fun watching me pick through the boxes. They've got 3 of these kits. I keep saying that there's 3 of these kits because they're actually 1960s vintage kits. They're the old ones, but I find that it's, unless one wants to spend a lot of money for a pristine kit, and why do that if you're going to build it? People buy pristine kits for collecting. So not really needing a pristine kit, I bought cheap kits, and I got 3 of them because sometimes parts are started, sometimes parts are broken, sometimes parts are not finished well at all. This is okay. I just found a thing that needs to be fixed. Yeah, having bought these kits, I found one that was started but not painted. There was one that was painted but not cemented. Found another one that was only a few things were painted. They just started painting the torpedoes in the torpedo room, and I was able to successfully sand the paint off. Needle pot there. Successfully sand the paint off and repaint them so that they weren't all blobby, messy. Anyway, there have been several times where in the molding process, the injection molding of the parts wasn't completed. There wasn't enough plastic in it, or the pressure wasn't high enough. You can see it a little bit on this one. The locker. There's a circle on that locker. That's one of the problems with the molding process is there's these weird little circles everywhere that don't have anything to do with the design of the submarine, and I don't see what value they have for the molding process. But I have sanded bunches of them, and there was one on this locker. Oh no, there's no other detail on it other than the circle. I'm just going to leave it. I don't know. It's just weird. Anyway, yeah, I had 2 of the 3 submarines. This locker wasn't filled in. And so there was this huge dent in it. I mean, this one's a little bit pushed in because it didn't fill. It filled like 95%. But some of the others were filled in like 60%. And there are these huge indentations where the plastic hadn't been filled in. So, yeah, I needed all 3 kits. There were a couple of instances like that where only one of the 3, apart from only one of the 3 was usable. So, yeah, I'm glad that I made the decision early on to just buy more of them. Okay, these need to be painted this gray color. I'm going to use the big brush, try to just paint across it. I'm going to use this pin, if necessary, to hold it. This little tab that where I've got the pin, that little tab doesn't show. It slides into one of the bulkheads. What am I seeing here? Like there's grit on it. Okay, this is an issue. This is going to be the bottom, so I'm not too terribly concerned about it, but I have to put my head magnifiers on a minute. There's always something, right? And I'm just like painting a big flat surface. Dirty? This looks gritty. It looks like there's grit on it. I don't know what to... I'm just going to wipe it off. This is... I'm going to use a little isopropyl alcohol and wipe the paint off because there's seriously something wrong with the texture there. And I think it's on the plastic. Is it from the primer? This is a messy thing. I didn't notice it on the surface until I started painting it. Hope it wasn't in the paint. Okay, I don't want the jar of paint to be full of like dust or grit or something. Okay, what I'm going to do with this over in a minute is really fine-grained, and maybe the primer's coming off, but oh well. Got this really fine-grained emery cloth, and I'm just going to give this a once-over because it was this weird texture on it. And you can kind of see it. It looks like, maybe when I primed it, maybe some dust was in the air and settled on it. Yeah, sorry for the delay. That was just odd and annoying. Fortunately, these pieces of cardboard have two sides. Okay, I'm going to try that again after I clean this again. That was just a digression and an annoyance. I'm not going to use the paint from the bottle cap this time. I am going to wander off screen in a little while and get the submarine hull and probably another paper towel. Okay, now let's just try this again. And if it happens again, I'm not sure what to say. I don't want to lose a whole bottle of paint because somehow grit got into it. Bubbles. Well, I kind of live with whatever's going on here. All right. Paint out of this brush. This has to dry, and then they flip over. got all sorts of watching paint dry things going on. This is almost done. These are going to go way up here, out of the way, sort of. I'm cluttering my work surface. I brought the colors of paint out that I wanted to use, but now they're in the way. Thanks for the follow. Thanks for joining in. I am going to take a little bit of time to explain what's going on. This is Relaxing Painting with Dice and Dungeons, and Dice and Dungeons is a Dungeons and Dragon campaign. It's not a submarine campaign, although I suppose we could have an adventure in a submarine. I suppose that's possible. And usually what happens on this stream is I am painting, I don't know, vicious, nasty bosses that we can fight with, or maybe centaurs that are actually sort of friendly and provide valuable information to fill in some of the backstory of our characters. Okay, or maybe a bunch of imps. Okay, that was good. What I just did, and this is kind of a regular feature of Relaxing Painting, what I just did is I just broke the tail. I picked this up. Okay, it's that kind of thing. And if you look at it, I managed to break the tail off, just like that. Yep, just by lifting it up, so I could show it to the viewers about what is usually done here instead of painting submarines. But these are rosin printed and they're kind of fragile, and that one was fragile enough so that I just busted it. So why am I painting parts of a submarine? And you can't really tell that these are parts of a submarine, really, at this point, but they are. I'm painting parts of a submarine because occasionally we run out of dungeon tiles and minifigs to paint, and that has happened. It happened once and became Submarine Wednesday. Actually, it's just, not Dungeon Tile Wednesday, but I've been working on this submarine forever, and continue to do that. But following Wednesday, this last Wednesday, where I did work on the submarine, there aren't any other things to paint, so it looks like we're going to have like Submarine Week, maybe even Submarine Month. I don't know. There's still a fair amount of work to be done on the sub, so that's not an issue. I've got things to paint and assemble, but it's not Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, this is Dungeons and Dragons, and there is actually a family of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them that I painted about a month ago. But this is the first tail that I've broken off. So we get a significant digression here as I find an appropriate adhesive and repair the tail. And somewhere around here is epoxy. I used up the 5-minute epoxy. This is going to be a Friday, isn't it? We have a whole new set of 5-minute epoxy that is not here. It is somewhere else. So I'm going to maybe I'll wait for break. I don't know. I'm really ticked off. This breaking off that tail was just not a good thing to do. It was just not helpful. But continuing to work on the submarine, I'm going to set this poor fractured imp aside and continue to work on parts of the submarine. Okay. So yeah, having run out of Dungeons and Dragons themed things to paint on the stream, I am painting the submarine that I've been working on. This color is used for a lot of the machinery, and it just so happens that it also is. Be right back. This, in fact, is the submarine that I'm working on. As you can see, the front part of it is pretty well complete. I've got a lot of detail on it. I've been kind of pleased at how, like, back in the galley, you can see the pots and pans and the outlines of the cabinets, and if the light was right, just to the aft, there's a storeroom, and there's actually meat hanging on it. All sorts of dials and buttons and things on the control panel. I'm sure those are historically accurate. This big chunk back here is where the ballistic missiles go. This chunk here is where the reactor goes, and I'm working on the reactor now. And then back here is a whole bunch of machinery. And this piece of machinery here needs to be second coated. Okay. And then, as you can see, there needs to be some touching up of the green color around the edges so that they become even. And that is something I will do later. But this is the color. And I'm going to take some time now to turn it around this way so I can actually reach it. The camera a little bit. Yeah, this submarine is like 2 feet long. It's just kind of large. I'm going to put a second coat on here, and then also put a first coat on this bit and this bit, which are, in my imagination, pieces of machinery. And I want to use a sort of large brush to minimize brush marks. I'm not, as you can see, not terribly concerned about getting the paint down onto the green, because I can clean those lines up later. These parts on the bulkhead will need a second coat, so I'll have to pull this out a third time a little bit later. But thanks for the follow. So things are a little bit disrupted today because I didn't have what I thought I would be working on. And I'm working on other things that I didn't think I'd be working on, but there it is. You can see here there's also some sort of little instrument panel, and I'm going to highlight those. There's little round things on it. I'm going to paint those white to look like dials like these. And then there's some other things here that I'm probably going to make red. So there, painting is happening. Breaking stuff that had already been painted is happening. Having way too much paint squeeze out where we need is happening. Yeah, it's a typical day on Relaxing Painting with Dice and Dungeons. There always has to be some sort of, oh my, really, I can't believe that happened event. Yeah, that just became so messy that I just gave up on it and said we'll get it in post, which means when I paint the green color to do the touch up, I will take care of that then. Okay, so there's that. It doesn't look like it'll need a third coat, but it will need a fair amount of touching up. And this needs to go in a safe place, so it'll be back soon. I need to finish these things. I'd like to do those. I'm actually going to leave this here. I just changed my mind. I'm going to work on those details sooner than later. But I'm going to paint this stuff here first. And I am getting paint onto the part that will be painted green later, but you know, like a lot of things, sometimes you paint down to things and then clean it up with the next coat. This will probably need a light second coat, because this particular color, although once it dries, it looks pretty nice. It looks like the color on the box top. It doesn't cover very well, and always needs a second coat and sometimes a third. Most of the rest of the submarine is mechanical rooms, and all the stuff in the mechanical rooms is painted this color. That will be just a lot of second and sometimes third coating. But I'm going to let this dry. See how it turns out. Fire extinguishers, tops of fire extinguishers, hatches, lockers, all these. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 more different colors, and then the tiny dot of chrome to represent the windows in the hatches. This is going to sit here sort of out of the way. I'm making a mess of the work surface. Mutter, complain. Mutter. That's how this show goes. There's a lot of muttering and complaining. Old man grumping. Yeah, there. So I'm going to then work on, since I've got this here already, and I want to move it as little as possible, is I'm going to work on the detail here of these bits in the hull. Okay, once this dries, I'm going to have the green out, because the bulkhead, the base color of the bulkhead is that same green. So after I paint all these little bits, I'll be, putting green paint all around them very carefully, trying not to mess them up. When I have the green paint out, that's when I'll take care of that. The first thing I'm going to work on is this control panel here. And I need little bits of this white paint. I'm putting my head magnifier on for this so I can see what I'm doing. Hopefully I'll get just a tiny drop of this instead of a giant drop there. And put these on. I'm doing this so I can see what I'm doing. This is like a 2x magnifier, and I don't know if you can easily see what I'm working on, but on this gray panel here are 3 little raised circles. Okay, and those 3 little raised circles I'm going to declare are dials, and the face of the dial is painted white. I'm trying to put little white dots That's it. That was the whole of it. Pretty exciting, huh? Now you've got three little white dots there. And then these things, I don't know what they are, but they're going to be red. And I'm going to not put, I have to get red paint out anyway, but I found that the safest way of doing that is this really fine tipped felt point pen, really fine, and I can just touch them with the pen, and it has, in the past and today, it's given me a lot more control than a brush. There. So that control panel, that's how detail gets painted on this submarine. That control panel now has little dials and little red tabs. The next thing I'm going to do requires me to wander off screen again. Here I go wandering. And I need to bring this whole box over a bit, but I started using this and it keeps working, so I'm going to continue. These circles here have a raised edge, so they're like a dial with a black bezel, but it's not black at the moment. And what I've tried a couple of things. I tried using a brush and paint. I tried using just a felt tip pen. But the thing I found works best is I took a nail and then sanded down the head of the nail so that it was flat. And the way this works is, since it's flat, it's like a stamp, but it only touches the top of the surface. Okay, it doesn't touch underneath. And so when I covered this with ink, a felt tip pen, this one in particular, I cover it with this. I have been most of the time able to use it like a stamp. See that? I don't know if you can see it easily, but it painted the ring, then it inked the ring so that it's black. And it left the inside of the ring white. He was able to do this on a clock. So that the hands of the clock actually were the show. Now there's some raised areas here. I'm going to just try it on here. Like a radiator or something, maybe. I'm not sure what that is. It's in the reactor room. It was molded into the hull. So I thought, well, let's go ahead and paint it. Happy with how there's this little tiny white spot that just isn't getting covered on this particular one. Misbehaving. Here. Okay, so the detail now on the inside of the hull. This is done. You know, the bezels are done, that's done, at least well enough. This is sloppy around the edges, but when I get the green paint out to paint the bulkhead, okay, when I paint the bulkhead, I'll clean that up, so that will be done. But there's nothing more to do with the hull right now, except, you know, show it off. Show off how the submarine actually turns into a submarine, okay, and all the detail that goes into it and everything. Yeah, it's okay. It's coming out okay. Anyway, I'm working on the reactor room stuff now. The missile room I've been working on forever, but the missile tubes need to be painted a second coat of yellow. And then there's all this machinery back here. But I'm going to put this away now so that I don't I don't want to break it. So I'm going to put it in a safe spot. Pretty much what needs to be done with that whole bit is to remember, I have to remember to touch up the green in the hull when I do the green on the bulkhead, which will be a while because I've got a lot more colors that need to go on this. Let's see, I'm going to put a second, this paint is still, yeah, I'm just putting a second coat on here now so that that's done. This stuff dries really fast, so I'm able to do this without waiting a long time. And then it'll be done, other than maybe some touching up if I mess up the edges, then I might have to come back and put little dots of this color on. Okay, that's that. The next thing I'm going to do is, I'll get this little brush out. I'm going to paint the fire extinguishers. I'm going to paint those now because after the red paint dries, the tops of the fire extinguishers, the tips of them get painted a dark aluminum color. Just rotate this stuff sometimes and see that the second coat did not coat that one little bit at the top of whatever this piece of machinery is. Just so much thinking back and forth with little dots of paint, trying to get the detail done. I guess that's just part of it. Oh yeah, gives this a good stirring. I'm getting all sorts of other downstream vibrations from the vortex mixer here. The music's still playing? Yes. Things continue to be working. Okay. Yellow, I've discovered that different paints cover differently, and yellows are bad. Reds are not much better. I might want to use this particular red, on the reactors. So I'm going to use this brush and just making a test swatch. If I have to put 2 coats on, that's okay. But I want to see what the coverage is like and how glossy it ends up. It's supposed to be flat. It's a pretty good red, though. I mean, the reactor is supposed to be red. It's like stay away red. So that might work. But mostly the only thing I really use this for in the submarine are the fire extinguishers and some things that look like they're alarms, like fire alarms or radiation alarms or something that are on the walls of some of these bulkheads. You know, it's a good fire extinguisher color. There's a fire extinguisher in every compartment in the machinery rooms. I guess that's a good thing. I mean, there's a lot of machinery there, which contains all sorts of superheated steam and electrical stuff and whatever. So, yeah, I think it's a good thing that there's lots of fire extinguishers around. These get painted red, and then the tops get painted kind of a dark silvery color. Hatchways that you see on here get painted a light gray. Is that this is, I paint these and I'm really trying to be careful to get good coverage on it. And then I put my head magnifiers on so I can paint the tips of these without making a mess. And it's like, oh, look, I missed a spot. How come that's not red? This is whining day. This is sleeping in and having a nice brunch maybe or something, but no, fulfilling my duty to Dyson Dungeons by doing relaxing painting. There, that was my wine. No, really, I really like working on this submarine because I built one. These kits are from the mid-60s. and I built one when it first came out. That tells you something, doesn't it? Yeah. So, yeah, not only are these kits original vintage, but so am I. But yeah, this was one of my favorite things that I built when I was like in 7th grade or something, when they came out. It was a really expensive kit. I can't believe my parents actually bought one for me. Must have been like a birthday gift or something special. But, I talked about it. My brother remembered it. It's big, right? Like 2 feet long. It's got all sorts of parts on the inside. What I do know is that when I did this the first time, that it didn't look like the one I showed you. Okay, it didn't look like that at all. I did not paint the pots and pans in the galley, or the hanging meat, or outline the cabinets, or do all the little dials and buttons and things on the control panels in the control room. I didn't do any of that, which means that it went together much more quickly. I didn't worry about the little circles that were molded into the parts, and I didn't go out of my way then to file them down and sand it flat. Now, the fire extinguishers look mostly red. A success. Yeah, it looks like this red is everything on my monitor. I don't know what it looks like on your monitors, but everything on my monitor ends up looking a lot more yellow than it does. Like, this is kind of a nice deep red, but on the monitor it looks orange, which it's not orange. Then there are some paints, like the vermilion. When I did the color, I did a color chart, because the paint doesn't look like it does when it dries. It looks different, and things like bottle caps and labels are not a good indicator of the real color of the paint. But the vermilion ended up in real life looking a lot more orange than I expected. Cleaning this off, and the next thing I'm going to give this an alcohol bath later. I'm going to get the light gray out. Neutral gray, actually, that's the color. This is the color of the hatches. I need to have something to talk about other than what I'm painting. People who have, if you've watched some of these older ones on YouTube, usually I'm able to go off on something, like Deputy Dog or Yogi Bear or the Flintstones or the thousands of different westerns that played in the 50s and 60s. TV was just like Western. Let's see. Maybe I'll try to do that. Let's do that. Let's try to name as many Westerns as possible. So there was Have Gun Will Travel, Paladin, right? That was a really good one. That's good. There was, of course, Gunsmoke. There, Rebel, Johnny Newman, Was a rebel, he roamed through the West. I don't know if you could do that anymore now, because he was a rebel. And I think at that point it was post-Civil War, so it was, that was his political leaning. Wyatt Earp. Yeah. Glorified all these people who were real jerks, and they were all just drunks and assholes. Sorry about that, but they all had nice theme songs. Wyatt Earp, brave, courageous, and bold. That was kind of redundant, wasn't it? Brave, courageous, and bold. Long may he something, and long may his story be told. So we grew up and, actually started thinking that some of this was like real history. See, there was one about Daniel Boone. So I think Daniel Boone was the one who actually, he was elected to Congress or something. It's part of the intro is he's making this speech. And he's, making this impassioned speech. He's standing up there yelling and waving his hat and all of that. And then when he's done talking, he just storms out. Just walks out. I don't know what the speech was about, but he was upset about something. And then he gets a standing ovation. Now, I don't know, one could say, well, he got a standing ovation for the content of the speech. Maybe there was a standing ovation because he just stormed out. Oh, Davy Crockett. Yeah, Davy Crockett. Oh, he was the one. Was Davy Crockett? Yeah, I think Davy Crockett was not Daniel Boone. It was Davy Crockett who went to Washington. Davy Crockett, king of the wild frontier. They all had these terrific theme songs. And kind of remember some of the lyrics. Davy Crockett was born on a mountaintop in Tennessee. The greatest state in the land of the free. I don't know why we were plugging Tennessee. Well, what was his claim to fame? He killed a bar. It's a bear. Why do you say bar? I don't know. But he killed a bar when he was only 3. What's up with that? Why is some 3-year-old running around killing bears? And how? But anyway, because of the theme song, we knew that Davy Crockett was born on a mountaintop. Why on the mountaintop? I don't know. Why not in the valley? Why not in the valley where the land was fertile? Maybe because maybe the bars are up there. The bars are up there on the mountaintop. Anyway, he became king of the wild frontier, which apparently was anything west of the Mississippi at the time. And it was. At the time, it was a Horace Greeley, right? I don't know. People get attributed with these quotes, and maybe it's true or not, said, "Go west, young man." Like going west was the key to a bright and brilliant future. But when he said go west, he meant St. Louis. Yeah, he did. He was not talking about Utah. In California, it's like, go to St. Louis, because that's where apparently the opportunity is. Now I'm looking at this, and as I said before, it's like, how could this happen? How can I be painting and then look at it later and see that parts are not covered, and seeing that with the red? So I'm just going to have to do some touch up on that now that I'm looking at it. being unhappy about the coverage. It goes into the hull this way, so you're going to be looking at it from this side. So I especially want to make sure that when looking at it from this side, that the coverage is there, and it's definitely not here. Especially on these here, just not right. Yeah, Gunsmoke Wagon Train. Then so many westerns. And there were some other ones later that was, you know, I mean, they were western in that they were set there, like Maverick. There were two Mavericks, Brett and Bart, and they took turns. I forget which was which. I mean, who played which, but one of them was, I think it was Bart, James Garner, whichever, that was the better of the two Mavericks. Everybody liked that Maverick, not his brother. Even his mother liked him better. It was, nobody even remembers who played the other Maverick, I think. Well, somebody must remember. There's always somebody who remembers something. So that had a good theme song too. The only lyric I remember is "Maverick is his name." Okay. But there's a whole lot of stuff that came before that, before we got to "Maverick is his name." I don't know that anybody would have been confused by that, because the show is called Maverick. So, you know, it would have been pretty weird if it turned out that the character's name wasn't Maverick. Oh, yeah, this is really old paint. I think this is about the last bit on the entire submarine that gets painted this color. It's been reserved for lockers. What did it get used for? There was something else that got painted this sort of grayish. It's a really kind of nice color. I should get a new bottle of it sometime. Yeah, that red is going to be okay for the outside of the reactor and the heat exchanger, because it's supposed to be red. I was thinking maybe of trying to paint it glossy, like the missile tubes, but the glossy paints it just, you know, it's just not, doesn't work well that well. This is mixed up. I don't know what there's something over there that is deciding to rattle in synchrony with the vortex spinner here. This is definitely on its last legs. It's really kind of a, forget what else I used it on, but it's a really classic locker color. I mean, it's like the color of everybody's locker in high school. happened with this paint is that it got thick and then I thinned it, and I think what's happening at the moment is that it's actually thinned out a little too much. But make sure it covers the locker. It's drying really fast and leveling really well, but the pigment is settled to the bottom a little bit more than I would have liked, and yeah, but it's okay. It slipped in my hand, except for the little bit of dirt on it. But there, it's making the locker the color that I want the locker to be. So what more can one ask of paint? The next bit is to paint the tops of the fire extinguishers, and then this store doesn't have a window, but this store has a window. That dot, if you can see it, is a window, and a tiny dot of chrome paint goes there. And I'm going to put that in, and if that works okay, then I won't have to retouch the gray, but if it doesn't, then I'll have to do some gray touch-up. I'm going to let that dry for a bit rather than getting it impatient and taking a chance. And the next thing I'm going to do while that is drying before I paint the dot of chrome and the tops of the fire extinguishers is back here, way back here. In testing some things for the reactor core, I've got these speed paints which work really well as like a colored wash. Got red, orange, yellow, and kind of what's supposed to be bone, but I'm not sure what color that's going to actually be. Is I'm going to apply them to this base coat here, just to show how that worked. What I did on these flying Valkyrie guys is I did that on their armor. I painted a silver undercoat, okay, and then put the speed paint over it. The speed paint's not opaque. It's like translucent, and so it gave it the color, but kept the metallic look, the shiny metallic look. And since the reactor core is actually metal, fissioning metal, this might work. So each of these is, let me start with the lighter colors and go to the darker. So more westerns: Wagon Train, Davy Crockett, Johnny Yuma, The Rebel, Daniel Boone. There must have been more. I mean, it was like countless westerns. Everything was western. This is just brown. I'm not sure that that's going to be any good. Yellowish. Yeah, I don't remember all the theme songs though. There were some. Every TV show then had theme songs. Rolling, keep those doggies rolling. Rawhide, huh? Yeah, of course. The theme song, it was Rawhide, which was about cows, I guess. You know, I was pretty young when I came out, and it was like, why do they call them doggies? They're cows. You know, my dad knowing things because parents know things as well because um, they called their cows doggies. Why? I don't know. They just did. They're westerns. Still don't know why. Ooh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good color for the glowing reactor core. Yeah, I might kind of do that, and then we'll see how the other colors look. But it might look like that, and then I could do highlights of another color. Show the different layers of the reactor core. That yellowy orange isn't bad. You know, the way this might work. Hmm. Yeah, I'm thinking this actually be okay. I'll show it to you in a bit. Let me do the third one. Just want to see what happens if you kind of blend them. Doesn't really work, so I'm not going to. Um, yeah, this will be more symbolic than real, but I'll show you what I have in mind. Is there's the reactor core, but there's also the heat exchanger, right? And the superheated water comes through this pipe from the top of the reactor and goes into the top of the heat exchanger. So the stuff on the outside, I'm just going to paint red, okay, because that's the pipe. But when it comes on the inside, I'm going to paint it with this silvery metal. And it doesn't really seem to matter whether I'm just going to use the lighter one. But as the water as the heat is extracted, it flows down. So I can start with like the yellow and then go to the orange and then go to the red. to represent the exchange of the heat from the superheated reactor water into the outer loop, the outside loop that takes the superheated steam, high pressure steam into the engine room. So I think that's going to look okay. It will convey the message of the water cooling off as it exchanges the heat. There's 1, 2, 3, and then there's the fourth one here. So it'd be nice to have had a fourth color, but there just isn't. So I guess, they'll be yellow and then orange. I was hoping to blend them, but it's not going to work. And then just do the red at the bottom. And that will just represent the exchange of the heat. The inside of this, this is annoying to me. These are the coils of the closed loop of the reactor water. Okay. The reactor is here. It comes out and goes in and then goes down and exchanges the heat. But this is supposed to be like the water. This is the water into which the heat is going. So I can say, the outside of this should definitely be painted the red color. Why not, right? Because that's the vessel in which it occurs. But the inside of this is a cutaway. And I would like to represent the water into which that is being exchanged. And I can't represent the exchange. I can represent the exchange of heat in these closed loop pipes. They just get cooler as it goes down. I'm not sure. It would be really cool would be to have like this look like water that. Yeah, I can do that. I wonder if there's a really nice light blue. I'm just looking at options here. I mean, I could paint it this pearlescent color to represent the water. I could do it like azure or a royal blue or a flat blue. And then we have this. That would be kind of fun, but I can't control it. We have this stuff called realistic water, which makes it look like water. But trying to confine it to that space would be really hard. But a little bit of this pearlescent, just like a dry brush on it, maybe. Yeah, I've got this out. I'm going to try that since I'm practicing and playing with things. I've got some time to do this, right? I mean, why not? Just give it a go, give it a try. Get informed on it. I want the tiniest little dot of this, but it doesn't. These paints don't come out in dots. These paints come out in globs. Yeah, it's pretty mediocre. This is a much nicer color, but I think it's going to be too aqua-y. And there's another option, which is there's a blue speed paint, I believe. Blue. Trying to do with so far no success really. This is too bright. So there's two parts to this cutaway reactor thing. Okay, this is the heat exchanger, and I'm looking at representing the superheated, high pressurized water in a closed loop from the reactor. That's a closed loop to keep the radioactivity in the, not transferring it to the rest of the submarine. So there's this closed loop. Let me just show you. So this is the reactor core, and superheated, super high pressure water comes out of the top and goes into this heat exchanger where the heat is transferred to high pressure steam. The water in here turns to high pressure steam in another closed loop, but closed loop. So I'm going to represent that by painting it these coils silver, and then using the speed paint to represent the cooling, like yellow, orange, and then red, cooling off. But supposedly this is in a bath of water. This isn't going through metal, it's heating water. So supposedly the inside of this is water that's being superheated. And I'm trying to think of a way of like representing that. And one way I could do that is by like painting it I painted this gunmetal, and then maybe using a pearlescent paint, that's not too bad, over it. And then the superheated steam goes up through this whole thing. But the way the box top shows it is that the coils just go through here. Okay, it's just the coils, and then this is all painted red, like the same color as the outside of the structures, but it's cut away. It'd be heating the water, turning it into steam. That doesn't look too bad. That as an option. And then the inside of the reactor, the outside, the containment vessel is painted red. And I think what I'm going to do is use like a flat black color for the background here, the cutaway part. Then these, which is these are pipes going in and out, so they'll be painted like this silver with red on the bottom and yellow on the top to represent the water flowing out. But this is like the reactor core. Okay. So this is the shielding on the outside. I'll paint that dark gray to represent lead. But then on the inside here, that's going to be, I'm going to paint it silver. Then maybe use the yellow. And then there's one more color I could play with. I put my handy dandy nail there, using that to puncture through the little glop that forms on the top. It dries. I'm looking at these pearlescent paints because, it's glowing hot. Yeah, that's going to work. So the way this is going to get done is I'm going to paint, use this as my pointer. This is going to be black on the outside, just to be black, just to contrast, basically. Try to not get all this weird colored. Touching stuff, right? Okay. So I'm going to paint this outside black. Then I'm going to paint this. This is the shielding of the reactor. And I'm going to paint that probably like dark gray. Okay, just to make it look like lead. These pipes come in and out, so they're going to be just like the heat exchanger. They'll be silver with yellow going out the top and orange going out the bottom. The reactor core, I'm going to paint silver, put the yellow speed paint on, and then dry brush the white pearlescent on top of it. So it's going to be like glowing, it'll look like that. Kind of glowing yellow underneath, and then the white hot on the top. And I'm hoping that looks like reactory. The whole outside of it is just painted this red color. Yes. So I think I've got what I want to do with the reactor. I'm still not sure what I want to do with this, because again, these coils are going through water. And I think this looks okay. This gunmetal, with the blue pearlescent on. I don't know. I could just paint it red. No, but those coils are going through water. Well, if worse comes to worse, I can always just, wash the paint off and try it over, or just get a piece out of another model and rebuild it. So anyway, that's the plan at the moment. We don't need this color. I'm getting rid of the colors I don't need, and I don't need this color. I'll be using those. I don't need this one. I don't need these. That. Okay. Getting near break time, so I'm going to try to do a few things like hydrate, get this bulkhead ready for painting. Let me start by getting my head magnifiers on again, as I'm painting little dots of things. Let's see, I need chrome and dark aluminum. There's the dark aluminium. What's these westerns? There was one with Cochise. There was always the good Indian, right? Always the good Indian. There was the Lone Ranger, which I guess that was a western, right? The Lone Ranger rides again. That was another one. The one of the millions of these things, just incredible numbers of westerns. So I'm sure I have forgotten to mention some. There was a comedy one, F Troop. I'm just paying attention to the tops of the fire extinguishers here. And the last bit on this is to paint just this tiniest little dot of chrome to represent the window in the hatch. The chrome, eat it. Yeah. I probably could use any of the silvers. No one, it's so small, no one could tell the difference. There it is. But it's what I've been using on all of the others, so I should probably, stay consistent that way. The spot. It's too big. I need to let that dry, and then there'll be a little bit of gray touch-up. Usually I'm pretty good at that, but just, I don't know, got the angle wrong and got the brush in the wrong spot. So that you can see the spot, where the window is, but it's like way bigger than it should be. So after that dries, I'll be doing some touching up on it. What happens with this now is that this is going to be painted green, the color of the hull that you might have seen before. So I'll be using this little brush and doing all around these little things, the hatches and the fire extinguishers, and trying to make a nice clean edge on both sides of all of these things, and then getting a slightly larger brush and filling in the rest. Down underneath here, this bit here and everything below it gets painted dark gray, because there's a deck that goes across here, and the underside of the deck is a ballast tank, and that gets painted the dark gray color. And speaking of dark gray, I can now, before break, get these guys out. I don't need my head magnifier for this, or this little brush. I need a much bigger brush. These are a couple of decks for the reactor room, and they are to be painted dark gray on both sides. This is the bottom, and then this is the top. Ta-da! And I'm going to carefully clean them. That's careful cleaning. Get the dark gray paint. Give it a mixing. And then after this, after I paint these, I am going to go on break and then come back and either begin working on the outside of all of those reactor vessels and things by painting the first red coat on them, or I will work on the green, the bulkhead green color, and also going back to the hull of the submarine, where I need to do some green touch-up. Need those bits. I'll probably try to do the outside of some of those reactor containment vessel parts first, because I'll almost certainly need to do 2 coats. And if I do them first, oh, geez. I don't know how I got so much paint on my hands. This is like grumpy, complaining, messy day. I had a nice losing things. I had a nice pin that I was using to hold these in place while I painted them. Misplaced that. You're getting a real classic. This is a classic relaxing painting with Dice and Dungeons day. I have another pin. It's not as nice because it doesn't have a T on it, but I still can use it to hold these. One of my favorite sounds. Just to ask my family. That's the really, this is the way things are going to go sound. And given how things are going, you might hear that more than once yet today. Okay. Those are gray. It now has paint all over it. If I put it away where it was, I might be able to find it again in the future. These, so that they're not in the way. So this, should I? Yeah, I'm gonna be impatient here, and touch up the overly large window on the door, just because I'm being impatient. And then I'll be done with the detail on the. Otherwise, I'm going to forget about it. I don't want to forget about it. There, now it's reduced to the size it should be. No need to fret about that during break. All right. Pretty much break time. I've got the decks painted. Hopefully those brush marks will disappear. Yeah, we'll see. There's just some unevenness there in the right in the front on the top where it's going to show the most. I'm not happy with how some of these things are going today, as you can tell. Okay. I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup with these brushes, hopefully not knock over this jar of isopropyl alcohol in the process. And then take a break. And after break, I will hopefully have found the epoxy that I need to fix the tail that I broke off of the imp. Good for me. And paint the first red coat on the bits, the outside of the reactor, the heat exchanger, and the discharge pipe. And that'll take 2 coats and actually kind of 4, because there's no place to hold on to some of those parts. It'll take more than 1 application, more than 2 applications to get it done, really. So that's why I'm going to work on that first, so that I can get, if I have to do multiple coats and different applications and things, I'll have time for things to dry and then move on to the next bit. And then as those are drying, hopefully I'll have a way to hold them. I'm going to then do the green on the bulkhead and the touch-up on the hull of the submarine. Probably get another paper towel, because there's that too. All right. So, yeah, hopefully that will just disappear as it dries. And I've got a plan now for the heat exchanger and the reactor core. And maybe that plan will work. So thanks for putting up with the grumpiness today, and for understanding why we were having sub-fry, because I don't have anything else to paint at the moment. I'll be continuing to work on the submarine after break, and maybe, who knows, I might even continue to work on it on Monday. After break, I will also talk about Dyson Dungeons and our D&D stream, and do a plug for, patreon.com/Dyson Dungeons. But first, the break. Yep, time for a break. See you in about a half an hour. Well, I'm back, and what I'm trying to do is get the music playing. There we go. It seems to stop. It stops during the break. I don't know, but it certainly stops when they come back from the break. But now we got music. Okay. Before I forget, I found the new epoxy. We got 5 minute and 30 minute. These are brand new unopened epoxy things. Yay. And so I'm going to open them and realize that I need to drill out the tops. So I'm going to use this little pin drill thing here. In the past, I've tried like poking a pin through these things and it just doesn't work. But there, that made a hole. Maybe it's big enough, maybe it's not. We'll find out. Is there an inner seal? Might be. Oh, there they are. These little caps in here so that, yeah, great. Now I've got more of this. These are the kinds of things, these little caps. Ooh, hi. Are you back? Or are you still on vacation? I did not do a flip. I have been doing no flips because of your absence. Yeah, I'm trying to get... This is not working. It's just been that kind of day. Oh, tomorrow. Okay. I hope the weather's been okay. It's been, winter here. I will do a flip after I get this epoxy opened, which should be really easy to do because this is supposed to just like pull right out, right? It's just an inner cap. But no. I have to find a tool. I have to find like a needle nose pliers or something significant. What can I say? The other one, the one in the rosin. Oh, that's good. I'm glad you had good weather. So if I can ever get this epoxy open, I'll explain why I'm trying to get it open, because I need to see that. It was one of those brilliant, relaxing painting with Dyson Dungeon moments where I decided to show something that I had painted before. So I picked one of these up, and as I did, I knocked the tail off. And then I thought, well, I'll just epoxy it back, and that would be a simple thing to do, except for the cap not coming out. Such a deal. I have to find a tool. I'll be right back. So, oh, well, yeah, I should do that. But, I'm doing Submarine Friday because we don't have anything printed. There. Jeez. So Submarine Wednesday is extending. Oh, yeah. Usually when we fly back, we almost always fly back and get at 12:30 a.m., which is not fun for the people who are doing the picking up. Okay, so, yeah, squeezing out little bits of epoxy here. The holes on the top of these are not big enough. Get an issue later. I had a toothpick. It's like, when you're having a day, you're having a day. Hi, Crafty. Thanks for joining in after break. What you're doing is you're seeing all sorts of frustrating things happening. There it is. At the beginning of the stream, I was showing off some of the things that I had painted earlier that actually had something to do with Dungeons and Dragons, and I managed to break the tail of the imp off. Nice, huh? And then, I had used up the old epoxy earlier, so I had to get some new stuff, so I did it over break, and on and on and on and on. And there it is. And I'm doing Submarine Friday, and probably we'll do Submarine Monday and Wednesday next week, because we haven't printed anything on the wonderful 3D printers. Yeah, well, I'm glad that you appreciate the sense of frustration, because it's just been little junk all day today. Breaking tails off of things, having paint spill on my fingers. I haven't knocked anything over in a significant way yet. At least I found a paper towel. Those are always handy. Just kicked something onto the floor. Yeah. So I'm glad you're enjoying the frustration part, because it's definitely happening today, but in a minor way. So I haven't done a flip. I'm going to do a flip for who here. No paint. I came up paint. 3 paints. 4 paints. 4 to 2 for paint. Yay. I have accomplished a few things. I've been working on the reactor room, and I got the decks painted top and bottom. How did that? That leveled okay. I was concerned about that. There was a blob of paint there. So those are painted and ready to be stored away in the parts bin. I got the detail on this bulkhead painted, and now I need to paint the whole thing green and do some touch up on the hull in the same green color. And then I'm going to start painting the parts of the reactor. And this is a cutaway reactor and heat exchanger. And the outsides are all painted red. I decided this red, which is on my monitor very orange, but it's not. So I'm going to start painting that, and we'll take 2 coats. It's going to be a little bit tricky because there really is no place to grab these. There's no place to hold on to them. Let's see. This cap. This cap goes on here. So theoretically, I should be able to, if I can clip it just to that rim, just to the part that gets covered up by the other part. If I can hold that, that'll work. Okay, so this one's working. Got a way to hold that. this one, I have no place to grab it. Just no place. I would think I could do something there, but that gets painted. So I'm going to try this. This just might work. You never know what'll work. I'm going to try to make like a peak, like a little mountain peak of the sticky tack here. There, that actually might work. Practicing holding things. Oh, God. Yeah. I was epoxying this tail on. I should probably do that before the epoxy sets up, right? Yeah. Yeah, I managed to break this off because, you know, why not? Why not just break something off? Just because. Okay, well, yeah. Now I'm going to have to hold this. This is going to be... It's going to be boring holding epoxy tail piece for like 3 minutes until it sets up enough to hold on its own. And I can't even get it lined up right. Okay, well, there. I'm just going to hold this, just the light and my lack of good vision. Okay, well, that's where it is. I'm going to hold this now for like 2 minutes until the epoxy sets, cures enough to hold it on its own. So let's count to 130. I got it mixed well. It's a new containers of epoxy, and I might have gotten too much resin and not enough hardener. I guess I could have kept doing something else. I could have kept doing something else instead of this for at least a little while yet, I guess. This is not... Yeah. No, I got another like 90 seconds to go. We are watching epoxy set. Welcome to relaxing watching epoxy cure with Dyson Dungeons. And I'm not holding it steady. It keeps moving around. I feel like just like constantly whining today. I'm doing a really good job of that, actually. I've been doing a very good job. I have to say so myself, of whining and complaining about things, even though it's just been little minor frustrations, like breaking tails off of imps and getting grit in the paint and You know, I've had some success though in getting some color schemes for the cutaway reactor anyway. Okay, well, there it is, absolutely in the wrong place. Great. I mean, it isn't even close. There. Right. I mean, except for the glossy epoxy sticking out there, you know. You'd never know that I broke it. Unless you watch the stream. There. It's not perfect, but the tail is now once again a part of the figure instead of being an accessory laying on the side. So I'm doing Submarine Friday because we don't have any Dyson Dungeons and Dragons related stuff to do. These are reactor parts. This is the reactor core itself, and this one. You can't see the back of this, so this is another one of those where maybe I can get. Maybe I can. I'll be right back. I will. I hope. Be right back. Piece of balsa wood. And if I can successfully trim it, I just got all these. I used to do model radio controlled airplanes, which was great fun back when I was working full time and had 2 little kids. Okay, so that means back when I had time. I don't know how I did that. I don't know how. You know, why I had more time when I was working full-time and had 2 young kids, but somehow I did. And so I built radio-controlled airplanes and flew them, and that was a lot of fun. But as a result, I had little bits of balsa wood, just little sticks and things like that, you know, sticks and bits of sheets, stuff that one accumulates during that kind of stuff. And I kept it because sometimes, like this, you know, it comes in handy. I could jam a little piece of balsa wood into the back of this where it's not going to show, and then put the other end of it into the sticky tack. Great difficulty. Maybe cut it down to a point, huh? So here's an interesting fun factoid. I read about this, I think, from a reputable magazine like it was either the Smithsonian or maybe even The Economist, that there's getting to be a worldwide shortage of balsa wood. And you know, they're concerned about that because it just, you know, it's not like a cash crop kind of thing. And when it's used for modeling, you know, a balsa wood branch, just a small branch would be enough to, you know, build hundreds of models. But the reason there's a shortage is because of wind turbines. And I think this is actually true, that these really huge, long blades of the wind turbines. I mean, they're really big. Have to be also very light. And so the core of the wind turbines is in some cases made out of balsa wood, and then it's covered in like a plastic or something. I'm going to paint this part first, the pipe, because that's like the least critical thing. And then after the pipe dries, I'll paint the head of it. So just stick it in the sticky tack here. Yeah, this looks all pretty weird, doesn't it? But it's holding the parts that need to be painted red, painted red, and there'll be more than one coat of it, so I'll get started on that. And I want to use a fairly large big bristly brush, because the broader bristles then will hopefully keep brush marks down to a minimum. I could use the really big brush, this one. Yeah, that didn't work, did it? Yeah, the bottom of that needs to be painted because the bottom seam actually shows. So if well, guess I'm going to use this one. See how it goes. There needs to be 2 coats put on it anyway, and hopefully the paint will level nicely and behave. After I get this painted red, I want to do the painting of the bulkhead. Do the green on the bulkhead, and do the touching up on the hull of the submarine. So what I was doing before break, to fill the time, was trying to list all of the different westerns that I remembered watching, because that's all that was on in the 1950s and early 60s, and during that part of the time. How you all, Jim? Yeah, I was trying to list all the westerns, as many as I could remember anyway, from that time period. I think there was up to like 8. Maybe I'll list them again, just whatever. It's something to do. So there was, Davy Crockett and Jim Bowie and Gunsmoke and Johnny Yuma the Rebel and Paladin, Have Gun Will Travel, Rawhide, Wagon Train. Did I say Maverick? I'll probably repeat myself, several times through this. Why not? The group. Cochise, Cheyenne. That was one. They all had great theme songs. Cheyenne, Cheyenne. Where will you be camping tonight? Lonely Man, Cheyenne. Something, something free and bright. The rhymes weren't always very good, but they did rhyme, so they were like official lyric songs. It's kind of an obscure one, Cheyenne. You know, they're talking about Davy Crockett's theme song. He killed the bar when he was only 3. Apparently in Tennessee, they don't have bears, they have bars. You know, not the fun kind of bar where you can go in and get whiskey. Give me the bottle. You know, that's how people did that in Westerns, especially the bad guys would do that. That's how you knew they were bad guys, is leave the bottle. They weren't asking for single barrel bourbon back then. It was just whiskey. Okay, well, this will take at least 2 coats. That's not surprising. Because the yellows and reds tend not to cover extremely well. So this is the official color of all the reactor stuff, you know, the box top and the painting instructions. Both insist that this be red, so red it is. This particular piece is the reactor core. That's pretty cool. Sounds really cool. That sounds a Wild West live action role-playing game. The Dice and Dungeons, not to brag too much, did a rootin', tootin', shootin' something or other. There was all sorts of rootins and tootins and things. Western kind of one-shot comedy event. And I think it's probably even on YouTube. It was, I don't think, if I recall correctly, it was not PG rated. It was not one of those kinds of sessions. I'm not sure it was totally R, but it was pretty close. I was not part of it. Some people who are not regulars on Dice and Dungeons participated in that, and they had a really good time. Doing it, but it sounds like the roleplay thing would be really pretty fun. You're going to do it at a con. Oh, even better. That's really neat that you're able to do that. Sorry, without my glasses, I have trouble seeing. Well, I just have trouble seeing at all, but definitely at a distance. And I have a large screen, chat screen that was created specifically for my lack of distance vision. But even at that, it's kind of hard to read it sometimes. A saloon! Wow. That's really, okay, yeah. That's really elaborate. An Egyptian, really? Somebody's bringing in our sarcophagus. Curiosity. Oh, that'll be fun. I can't imagine that anything but good will come of that. I mean, an unopened, authentic Egyptian sarcophagus, nothing bad can happen. Okay, well, it's drying quickly enough so I'd be able to get a second coat on, I think, a little bit later yet today. This is the heat exchanger, where the superheated high-pressure water from the reactor goes through a closed loop and exchanges its heat. That's why it's called a heat exchanger. With the water that's in this vessel. These pipes are the ones that are part of a closed loop. And then they go into this open air, this area here, which is the cutaway. Then these coils then exchange the heat with the contents of the vessel, which is becomes superheated steam. And I figured I've got some thoughts about what to do with the coils to make it look like, they're hot and then they cool off as they go from top to bottom. But the inside of this is supposedly, it's supposed to be water that's turning into superheated steam, and I'm not sure yet, still not sure yet how I'm going to represent that. The box top shows it just as being red, basically the same color as the containment vessel, but as the holder vessel. But that doesn't really make sense. Okay? Because it's a cutaway, and the inside is supposed to be the water. So the water wouldn't be red. Not unless they dyed it. It's not the same color as the vessel in which it is contained. I was thinking maybe I would make it, like water-colored blue metallic with a blue wash on it. I don't know if that's going to work or not, but it is. I think I'm going to try it. A little bit of ridge around here to represent. No, the bottom is the containment vessel. That's not going to be water, so I can paint that red. A bit of a line of red along here to represent the edge of the containment vessel, at least at this point. Oh, that was a nice line. I should have tried that same thing on the other side where it didn't turn out as well. Back is looking a little scabby, but it's on the back. So after 2 or 3 coats, it probably will be okay. Yeah, well, there's red stuff now. There's parts of it that are red that weren't red before. And it would look better after 2 coats, and as I said, it might even need 3. Brush just went flopping out. So keep this paint handy because it'll get used a little bit later. The next part, to paint the bulkhead green. So are you part of the writing team? Are you all just like as a group writing it, or do you have some designated people writing? the inside of this, the cutaway reactor, is going to be multiply colored. The shield wall for the reactor, which is this, okay, I'm going to paint that dark gray like that to kind of represent lead. Actually, I'm going to paint it neutral gray. And then the outside around it, I'm going to paint black, not necessarily because it's supposed to be black, but just as a contrast to the rest of it. These little pipes are the water coming in and out, so those are going to be painted silver, and then speed paint matched to the water flow. Okay, and then the inside of this is also going to be painted silver with yellow speed paint wash, and then these parts here, these textured parts, which represent, I think, the nuclear fuel, I'm going to give a dry brush with white pearlescent paint. And I'm hoping the whole thing has a, ends up looking pretty good. I don't know, I'll find out. Yeah, I could paint the neutral gray things now. I could do those. I think I will, since I'm looking at it. And those will be overpainted with the other colors. There's no reason not to. And then I'm going to do the green and then do another coat of red. And just see how the time goes. You're in charge of logistics. Does that mean that you have to find the sarcophagus and get it transported there? And where did you find a sarcophagus anyway? Most people don't have those just sitting around. Just wondering. It sounds like your grief is a lot of fun, and that you're to put these on. It's right at an intermediate level, right? It's too close to see without these and too far away to see without them. And yeah, I can't do this without these. This is supposed to represent like lead. Oh, how cool. So yeah, so you really do have a sarcophagus, even though, it's not a real one, but it's a real one. It's a sarcophagus. Hopefully, being a movie prop, it's light and easy to carry. And, why not? Everybody's got like a movie prop sarcophagus in their living room. I'm kind of jealous over that. That's really cool. So have you come up with alternative ideas for what's going to happen when the sarcophagus is opened? Have you been like brainstorming options, or have you already settled on what's going to happen? Oh, okay. So it's not just it's not just a prop that one like made out of styrofoam with a plasticine covering or something. Lovely. Yeah, I don't envy you. But of course, you're in charge of logistics, so there you go. I just have one small piece of advice. Wheels. We learned that this summer. Well, actually more than that. Several times we've been doing, some landscaping out here in our yard, and that has involved moving bricks and paving stones and wall retaining blocks and stuff. Collectively, they weigh several tons. Literally, collectively, they weigh tons. And we've discovered that wheels are really good, like on hand trucks and wheelbarrows. That was a great invention. I'm very much in favor of that. We didn't use it quite as much. Yeah. You probably can rent one for only half the price of buying one. And then when you're done with it, you don't have to store it. On the other hand, you never know when you might need one of those. So the other tool, these are the simple tools. We learned about these in grade school. What were the major tools that were invented by humankind? The wheel was a big deal. Lever. I'm also in favor of levers. We use those when we're moving boulders and things like that. That's another good tool. Levers and inclined planes, ramps, basically. You might be able to use like all of those, getting the sarcophagus onto the furniture dolly. The dolly will have wheels, but you might use levers to get it up onto the ramp. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, with cyberpunk, yeah, that stuff can get pretty heavy. So that might be a good long-term investment. So if you're doing this, I don't know if you've got like an LLC, if you're doing this as a business or something, but the whole thing can be expensed then. It's an essential piece of equipment. I was going to do something, green. I was going to start painting green, wasn't I? Let me find it. Here it is. Light green. I'm going to take a chance and do the touch-up on the submarine hull first before I start working on the bulkhead, because then it will be done and I won't have to worry about it, and this will give me an excuse to stand up. Oh God. Holy cow. Are you like renting a warehouse somewhere to store all of this stuff? Nerf blasters too, at least that's safe, right? More than one fog machine. Yeah. Well, this is what you can do, is you go out and rent one of those self-storage containers. Oh, I'm going to go on a digression about that. Be right back. That'll be a thing. So there's all these they call them, they're storage containers, storage lockers that you can rent, right? And it's a handy thing to have, because then it's not in your garage. And then what's really cool about it is that you can forget about it, and stop paying rent on it, and then the storage place repossesses it all, and then it gets to go on TV on. Oh, you haven't seen this? Okay, yeah. There actually is a submarine I've been working on. This is A vintage kit. Where's this dirt coming from? I've been keeping it covered. Is that a flaw? Okay, there's another place to do some green. This is actually a kit that was made in the 1960s that I built when I was a kid, except not nearly in as much detail or as moderately carefully as this is done. Yeah, I bought 3 of these in order to get enough parts to make one. It has cool things like these periscope things go up and down inside these tubes. Okay. But yeah, this took like forever to get this much done because I work very slowly and stuff. And this is where the missiles go, and I'm working on that. Once they're painted yellow, I'll be able to put it together. This is the bit I'm working on now. This is where the reactor goes. Okay, those decks slide into bulkheads here and here, and then this reactor is kind of suspended in the middle, and the pipe goes back into these areas, which are full of machinery. And just tons of machinery all colored this color. I was making pretty good progress on this. I spray painted the missile tubes yellow, but they didn't cover very well, and so they need to be second coated, and then assembling it is going to be a real bear because the missile tubes they're suspended between 2 decks and slide through a central one, and if they're a little bit too... Anyway, the holes in the deck aren't big enough for them to slide into. So yeah. Anyway, what I'm doing with the green paint is I'm touching up around this so that the line is even, because the sort of beige paint just made a mess, and hopefully I'll be able to get that cleaned up. But I think I built one of these originally when it came out in the 60s. I built an original one. It had in its original date, but I didn't spend nearly as much time on it as I have this time with the detail. I think I painted the torpedoes and maybe the tabletops and some periscopes. I didn't paint the floors or anything, so it went together much more quickly than now. I mean, there's even detail, like there's dials and gauges and stuff in the forward part of the torpedo room. Anyway, yeah, so it really is a submarine. Okay, on a nuclear submarine, maybe you can have like nuclear accidents or something. Who knows? So this model is of the prototype of the very first sea-launched ballistic missile launching submarine with George Washington. And yeah, I mean, it's a really nasty thing. It had 16 missile tubes. The original Polaris submarines carried 1 warhead each, so they could obliterate 16 cities. Later on, the later ones carried multiple warheads, so they were able to obliterate many, many more times as many cities as this one. But anyway, yeah, started working on this when I ran out of things to paint for Dungeons and Dragons, and it's become kind of a regular feature now. It's usually only Submarine Wednesday, but didn't have any dungeon tiles or minifigs to paint. And so we're having Submarine Friday. And there's an excellent chance that there will also be a Submarine Monday and Wednesday next week. Now, painting this straight line, this turned out to be this is going very badly. This is not a straight line. I hope that's my wife playing the TV extra loud, but not some sort of something else that's going upstairs. People yelling. Well, it's got to be, now they're screaming. Screaming usually doesn't happen no matter what going on in the house. So I'm sure you can't hear it, but I'm just hearing very loud let's just say the volume is up really loud on that TV program. For a reason, I'm sure. I'm glad this is on the back wall, because it's not being painted really well. This project, well, I would say at the rate this is going, 10 more streams, between 10 and 12. And usually I get about like 3 hours of work in each one, so what's that, 30 some hours yet. There's nothing, the parts that left are not technically challenging. Okay, most of the machinery, most of it's like pieces of machinery, and the pieces of machinery all just get painted the same color, this beige color. The floors are just painted tan, so there's no real time-consuming detail that's left. A lot of the time, the parts that are left is the time-dependent things are whether the parts are going to fit together or not. And if they all go together, it should be okay. If I knew what I was doing, okay, yeah, and I really mean that, if I were like a real master modeler, like if I knew if I was doing modeling sort of professionally or something, and I was doing it well, it would take a lot less time and it would end up looking better. But what I'm doing here is a retired person's version of a 13-year-old building a submarine model. It's pretty much what it is. That's why I got like little details on the control panel, and dial faces on the control panel and hands hanging in the storeroom, because I'm doing the old retired person version of a 13-year-old building a submarine model. Okay, well, I touched that up well enough so that it doesn't look gross anymore. And I'm going to put the submarine part away and cover it up so that it's less danger. Some parts of this just take forever. What ends up taking forever are things like the missile tubes. There's 16 of them. They're just 2 halves. If I were to just glue them together and stick them in the submarine hull, it would have taken, I don't know, maybe a half hour total, not counting the time it took the cement to set. But, the seams showed. So I filed and sanded down all the seams. And then the tops of them were off, so I filed down the tops. And then I painted them yellow, and the paint didn't cover, so they all have to be repainted. And then they're not going to slide in through the holes in the middle deck very well, so each of those holes is going to have to be reamed out enough so that the tubes actually go through. And so something that would have taken maybe a half hour now ends up taking maybe 6. So I don't know. I guess maybe that actually comes with doing this kind of modeling. I haven't built a model. I was planning to build tons of models when I retired, and never did. Never got around to it until I started doing this Submarine Wednesday kind of thing. Anyway, yeah. And then just, painting green paint along the edge of the fire extinguishers so that the line is sort of straight, and along the tips of the fire extinguishers so that they kind of show nicely. Someone who was more skilled and maybe had a steadier hand, it would all go more quickly. But, it's I'm really enjoying building this submarine because it's like a blast from the past for me. It's reliving something that I enjoyed doing when I was much younger. And then I get to learn about the kinds of things that you're doing. Oh, well, what I was going to do when I talked about a storage unit, which, if you want to, you can use to replace your garage as a location for storing all of these props, is the names that they're given. I think some of them are hilarious. A lot of them are called self-storage. Well, they're not. I mean, some people actually do live in storage compartments, and that's actually kind of sad that happens. That is, if you call it self-storage, you're kind of implying that that's what you're doing, right? That's where you put yourself. At least, when you want to be in storage. I thought that, that's one of those weird things, self-storage. I saw one, it might be a chain, I don't know, it's called Extra Space Storage. And it's like, if you've got extra space, why are you paying to store it somewhere? So that was a thing that didn't make any sense. And you would think that since it was just extra space, that you wouldn't really need to have a special place to store it. It was just empty space, right? And how do you even store that? What do you do? Do you like bundle it up in boxes, or I don't know. It just didn't make any sense. There's one I saw. What was it? Oh yeah, life storage. That was kind of scary. Is life really? What really are you storing there? Life storage. Necromancy layers or something. Or maybe it's where you put, getting the word, the thing in which souls are stored. Maybe that's where you keep them. But yeah, storage facilities, just one of those things that sometimes have really odd names. And I can't say that they're thought-provoking. I mean, they shouldn't be. You should not really be thinking about what I've just been talking about, which is, what do you put in self-storage? What do you put in life storage? Or how do you store your extra space? That's not the kind of thing where you should just, in your idle moments, just begin to wonder. But it is the kind of thing. It is the kind of thing you would expect to hear about on Relaxing Painting with Dyson Dungens. So when you said that all of this stuff is being stuck in your garage, yeah, sometimes you can get a good deal on storage. Maybe if you went to self-storage, I don't know. You get a discount if you store yourself at self-storage. Well, another thing about storage contain units, whether it's self-storage or life storage or extra space storage, regardless of what kind of absurdity you can think of based on the name of the storage place, is that you can, maybe you have a life change, significant life change, and you forget about what's there. Okay. You just totally forget that you were storing your friend's sarcophagus in a storage unit. You just stop caring about Nerf weapons, and then you stop paying the storage unit fees, and it gets repossessed. That is what the source. That was one of the very first self-storage units. Well done. Yeah, so you end up forgetting about it and it gets repossessed, and then they do a storage wars kind of thing, and maybe what happens is you're actually watching storage wars. And then they put your stuff up for sale, and you go, "Oh man, I knew I was forgetting something." Because people are always forgetting something. I've gotten really pretty good at forgetting things. But yeah, then you could see your stuff being auctioned off. And some guy with funny glasses will talk about what a great deal they had and how much money they're going to make on this whatever it was that you forgot was stored there. There is. See, that's handy. I don't know. I'm not sure how storage things work all the time, but you might be able. Sometimes, if you like pay in advance for a longer period of time, you can get a discount, like a quantity discount kind of thing. Actually. Sometimes it's as simple as using like an auto pay system, where you just have it put on your credit card or debited from your bank account on a regular basis. Storage units like that, because there's a fairly high risk of non-payment at storage units, I think. And they vary by size, the prices. So if you have just enough, you want to have just enough to fill up like the smallest one they have, but not so much that you need the next size up. Or if they have oh, that is kind of high. Well, here's a thought. I don't want to interfere in your storage issue, but since we're chatting, do you have any friends who have garages full of stuff that their spouse wants them to get rid of? Maybe you could go in on it. Could share it with someone. You could have a storage co-op. Just little spots there, just along the edge. That's the kind of thing that's really annoying, because when this is inserted into the submarine, it'll be looked at from this edge like this. And so I just need to touch those up with the beige paint, which doesn't cover very well. But probably will need to be done there. Just these infinitesimal little points. The alternative is maybe to get that line even. Yeah, I think that worked kind of. I still have one spot that I need to fix, but it's better than it was. Well, see, it's in your friend's garage. They might want it out of their garage. And then it would only be, what, $27.50 a piece. Just talking about it, but got onto this because all I wanted to do was talk about the weird names that storage places have. So with a sarcophagus, you could have both self-storage and life storage. You know, if you thought that your mummy was going to be coming back to life, or represented your life force. Well, this painting so far is coming along okay. Oftentimes with detail painting like this, I've discovered it isn't always exactly where the dividing line between one color and the other is. It's whether or not the line is even. And on that this piece of machinery there, it's almost but not quite even. So that is going to require some touching up. The beige paint is just a dot of paint is what it would take, which is some of the most annoying touching up, because it's like you get the dot of paint in and it just doesn't go on right, and then you have to do a dot of the other color paint in the other direction, until all of a sudden, instead of a dot of paint, what you've got is a plateau of paint buildup. Oh, that was a messy thing I did. Got way too much paint on the brush here. And so what I'm going to do is not take a chance. I'm going to wipe it off before trying to finish up the last bit of painting the perimeter around this hatch. After this, then I'm going to get out a little bit larger brush to try to minimize, not eliminate, but minimize brush marks. I have to say, doing this, painting minis in this submarine, just have to say this about myself, I don't talk about myself that much, is I've been really surprised at how steady my hand has been. Okay? And you'd say, well, why is that surprising? Well, I would say because I am ancient. I need to do a little red touch up there too. Yeah, there's always the back and forth. The back and forth of the different colors before it's just right, especially where it shows. Yeah, I'm actually using a reference image. I'll show it to you just a second. Part of it, the painting directions for this model are just terrible. They've got like 4 colors on the painting directions, and essentially if you followed them, it would be like when I did this when I was like 11 or 12, is maybe 5%, maybe 10% of the surface area of the model would actually be painted. Like the bulkheads, like a bulkhead like this, there would be an arrow pointing to it that says green, right? And the fire extinguishers would say red. So you put some red paint on and green and maybe kind of outline them, but the hatches and the lockers and things would just get painted green because that's what it said. So I've been kind of ignoring those painting directions because they're useless. And what I've been doing instead is referring to the box top color scheme. That was a necessary sigh. There's a plastic tube that protects the bristles. Is in a state of constant disappearance. Fortunately, there's an extra one here. And I keep telling myself, self? Really? Oh my God. There. Put the plastic tube in a place safe. There. That didn't even work. Put the plastic tube in a place where you can find it. You know, just set it down in the same place all the time so that when you need it to cover up your paintbrush, you can find it again. And did I? No, I didn't. And the other tube, the spare tube, there it is. I safely put it in a hidden spot. Lovely. So let me show this to you just real quickly. I'll be right back. This is one of the 3 kits that I bought. You get enough parts to make one. So yeah, this is what I've been using pretty much as the color guide. Okay. So yeah, the instructions say paint it green, but you know, what shade of green, right? It could be 100 different shades of green. When this model was put out, the model paints, practically the only ones that were available were Testors enamels. Okay. So when it said paint that green, you had one choice. There was green. And maybe if it was a really good model shop, you'd have like light green or olive green or something like that. And so, yeah, the box top does not reflect the model exactly. Okay. Like back here on the reactor where I'm working on it, the coils do not go like that. It'd be great if they did, but they don't. So like here, like the machinery, okay, there's no guidance on the instructions, the model instructions about what color to paint them or what color to paint the decks. So I just found some paints that I had that comes close to the color of this. That's that kind of beigey color that I have. And then the floor here is a little bit different color than the floor here. It's the same color as, you can't really see it, but there's a ramp here between the torpedoes. And that's the color. Oh, the same color as up here. And these decks is the color back here. I haven't used that since I painted these decks, which was one of the very first. This is the first part of the submarine to be put together. And then the torpedo room. For some reason, this goes early on, and I guess just to make it look like something's getting done in this. In fact, I can show you this. These are the parts I'm not using. But this kind of shows you the condition these models come in. Okay. Oh yeah, here I can show you. This was when I talked about the molds not getting filled in. That's the locker from the original kit that I'm working with that was a disaster. But this is how you end up buying these kits. Like this one's got just somebody started gluing it together. So the whole torpedo room is glued together. None of it was painted at all. So if I hadn't found parts that were clean and not glued together, which I did from one of the other kits, I would have been taking this apart. In fact, I did. I pulled one of the torpedoes out. And I don't know what they used. They didn't use model cement because whatever it is did not dissolve the plastic. and it didn't hold. So when they put this part together, okay, it all just fell apart. So this is one of the spare kits, and I have a third one. The third one, they didn't glue anything together, but they started painting it and really did a terrible job of it. But then, this basically is my color guide, and I've been coming kind of close to it. For the only reason why is just because, why not? These were the colors that the box top had. Probably could have done anything else. I did some other things, like the chairs. The chairs are light green, like the color of the walls, but I had this really nice deep green that looked just like 1960s Naugahyde, because I remember that. We had a recliner chair in that color. So I used that. And this kind of detail does not exist in the model. In fact, there isn't anybody sitting here at this periscope at all, so the box top and the model don't really match completely. Anyway, yeah, that you asked, that's what I'm using. Yeah, I need to paint the rest of this. I'm going to use I have to get some fresh paint out here. Well, like the reactor core, it just, there isn't any guidance in the box top about how to paint it. So I'm just going to make some stuff up, and hopefully it will look okay. Oh my, it's almost time to quit. Huh. Time went quickly. Well, I definitely want to get this green on so that I can dry between now and then being Monday. And I'm not going to have time, it looks like, maybe, but unless I go long, to put a second coat of red on these things. But that would be an okay way to start another stream. Just using this larger brush to fill in the rest of these bulkheads. Maybe they'll need a second coat. Doesn't seem to be covering as well as I would hope. Get it too thick, so I'm just going to be dealing with two thin coats instead of a really thick coat. So deck goes across here, but the bottom of the deck is going to, this support, which has nothing to do with the structural reality of the submarine, shows as the ceiling of the deck below. So that gets painted green. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to put a second coat of green on this, just because of the thickness of the paint and the way the brush marks are showing, given the brush that I'm using. I guess that's okay. Used up a lot of time messing around with this stuff. But I'm making progress. It's starting to look submarine-y. I'm getting closer all the time to actually having it done. It's probably 10 more streams, another 30 hours maybe, for this whole thing to be finished. If I can get the missile deck done, and I'm hoping to get that done either Monday or Wednesday of next week, if I can find a way to hold the missile tubes while I spray paint them individually, and I have to do that so that they get coverage. it's going to be a lot of fiddling around, a whole lot of boring fiddling around, just getting those parts to fit in the missile room. You know, custom reaming out the holes so that the missile tubes slide into them, adjusting the tops and the bottoms of the tubes so that they nestle in the deck, the lower deck, and nestle in the upper deck. Just that kind of messing, little detail messing around, trying to get things to fit without scraping the paint off. So on Monday, assuming that stuff doesn't get printed between now and then, which it might, we might have minifigs. But next week, either on Monday or on Submarine Wednesday, be putting a second coat of paint on these bulkheads, because it's just not going to cover evenly with one. So a second coat of green paint. It looks kind of scabby. It always bothers me with this green paint, but it ends up, as it dries, it levels pretty nicely. So the parts that are kind of bubbled up, it looks scabby, turn out to be not quite so bad once it dries. And then I'll put a second thin coat on. And then, almost time to quit. And I probably should quit on time. Give myself more to do. I'll be putting the second coat of red paint on these. You could see it kind of was red, but it's very uneven. And then in this one, I'm going to be painting the coils metallic, and then putting different colors of wash on them to represent, here it is, hot, medium, and cooler as the water goes down and the heat comes out of it. So it'll look a little rainbow, but I think it'll convey what I'm trying to convey. I might just do 2 yellows and 2 oranges. The red doesn't look good, but the yellow and the orange makes sense. So I'll do the top 2 yellow and the bottom 2 orange. And then, so I think, the background is supposed to be water that's being superheated. And I think I'm actually going to do this. I'm going to do the silver on the bottom, okay, like that, and then use this blue pearlescent paint on it to make it look like it's water. Oh, wow. Huh. Yeah, there's a whole section in there that's going to show. Didn't get any red paint on that at all. I didn't rotate it in a way that, that's why we do second and third coats. And the reactor core is, I'm going to paint black all around the outside. And these are the pipes. So the top one will be yellow and the bottom will be orange because the water circulates. And then the inside will be highlighted, will be silver with this yellow, and then with a white pearlescent dry brush on the core part here. And if I can, what I really want to do is, since there's yellow on the top and orange on the bottom, is it'd be kind of cool if I could kind of blend them together here in between. Okay, the pipe isn't there, but no, the pipe is, this is behind the pipe, so this is going to be the reactor core. So yeah, there's like multicolored detailing, but I want the reactor core to look okay. So that's pretty much it for Relaxing Painting with Dice and Dungeons today. Thanks everybody who is watching. I will be back Monday at pretty much 10 o'clock, and we'll either be continuing to work on these bits of the submarine that I'm working on now, or if anything gets printed between now and then, I'll get it primed and we'll be doing Dice and Dungeons-y kinds of things. Let's see. Take a paper towel. these two pieces of the deck are finished, but I don't want the paint to get scratched up, so I'm going to just going to wrap them up in paper towel like this, just to provide some protection while I put them away in the box. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for the new follower. Thank you, anybody who becomes a YouTube subscriber. And if you care to, go to patreon.com/diceanddungeons. That's patreon.com/diceanddungeons and become a patron, where you will have access to our DM notes from our Dungeons and Dragons sessions. I think we have notes that are posted up through maybe like episode 14 or so. Those come out fairly frequently. And also our improv warm-up sessions, which are subscriber exclusives, and they're hilarious because we are a very funny and entertaining group of people. Thanks again, and have a good weekend, those of you who have weekends, and see you on Monday.